Well, there are a lot more rural members than there are urban members in the Ontario Legislature, isn't there? I mean, we've got some big cities. We've got Ottawa, we've got Windsor, Toronto. I couldn't even, Hamilton, Oshawa, if you will. But the rest of the riding, for the most part, especially in the north and the eastern part of the riding, or the province rather, mostly quite rural, isn't it?
Probably landmass. I'm not so sure membership-wise.
No, membership-wise, I'd agree with Lou. I think when the legislature downsized between 1995 and 99, the area that lost representation was rural Ontario. I know my area, as an example, the area that I represent had previously been represented by 3 members, now represented by 1.
Wow.
So it is because of the ridings being based on population. The voice of rural Ontario isn't as great as it once was, and that's why we all, as I say, it doesn't matter what political party you're from, why we all have to work hard to make sure that those interests are recognized by the government.
Well, I guess you'd have to get out from under the shadow of the big urban centers. Yeah, actually, and you know what? You're absolutely right now that I think about it, because I mean, in the city of Toronto, for instance, there's got to be 21, 22 MPPs rather. So
I mean, in our local area, Dave, I mean, you take, there's 2 of us now, myself and Minister Dombrowski from Hastings, Prince Edward. There used to be 4. There used to be Northumberland, Quinte, Prince Edward, and Hastings. And now, roughly the same year, there's only 2, so cut in half.
So that must make it really difficult to, as you said, to keep the voice of rural Ontario.
Well, and you put a lot of miles on your car as well, too. Because I have 11 municipalities that I represent that, all have interests, all have things that they want advocated for, and so I spend a lot of time on the road. So you get to know your riding quite well, the good roads and the bad roads.
Well, how do you, as Speaker of the House, I mean, you were elected by the folks in this riding, and you were elected as a Liberal. How do you, as Speaker of the House, maintain a constituency office being nonpartisan? I mean, I'm sure people bring questions to you all the time saying, why can't the government do this? Or why can't, how do you do
and I still do. I'm not, for example, where Lou may make an announcement that he's pleased on behalf of the McGuinty government to announce such and such, I would just announce on behalf of the government of Ontario. So I don't use the word McGuinty, but I still advocate. There's nothing that stops me from advocating for my constituents. And in many ways, I think I can push a little harder for my constituents because I do have that streak of independence. And that if I cross over the party line a little bit, I don't have anybody that's going to punish me, so to speak. So I still I have a relationship with the ministers. I've actually used members of the opposition to introduce petitions on behalf of my constituents. So I find that the issues that I have locally really haven't been impacted as a result of becoming the Speaker.
Well, that's great news, obviously, for anyone whose MPP is going to become the Speaker, because a lot of people have the problem, and I know it's the same thing when people elect the Premier or the Prime Minister in their riding. All of a sudden they're thinking, wow, now my problems are going to be left to the wayside for the entire province, especially if it's, Premier McGuinty's riding or Prime Minister Harper's riding. Well, let's talk about one thing that you brought up recently, and that was the issue about flags in the legislature and the fact that the flags that were being utilized were flags that were purchased from China. And I think the point you made was that the flags cost $13 each when bought from China and are $5 cheaper than the Ontario-made flags. But I guess your point is we should be buying Ontario.
Well, it is, and I believe I know we made the right decision. I made the right decision by saying, no, we're going to buy Ontario-made flags. The flag is a symbol of the province. And, there are certain things that are very near and dear to us, and the flag being one of them. I've been conscious, particularly from my Minister of Agriculture days, of, I talked about it at all 3 schools today, of buy local, buy Ontario, buy Canadian when it comes to agricultural produce. And I've been working really hard at the legislature to move forward on initiatives that promote Ontario product. And the flag was something that happened, came to my attention, and it has been corrected, and it will not happen again. We will have Made in Ontario, or if not Ontario, Made in Canada flags.
Well, I know a lot of people locally were pretty happy to hear that, and because, again, very strong sentiments for buying locally here in Northumberland and Quinte West. You know that firsthand, Lou.
Absolutely.
I mean, you had a lot of local folks participating in the Royal Winter Fair, for instance, the last year.
At Queen's Park, Lou had
and you had the visits at Queen's Park.
Yeah, it's a great day. And it's all about local, And I think I must give credit that where credit is due. Steve's done a great job in the legislature, not only with food, but all other, whatever we could. It's got to be Ontario, and it's probably, and you know, in tow with the government also, when we talked about the great advance we made within the agricultural community that Steve mentioned. I guess when he was Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, that ball started to roll. And it's picked up so much, you know. I mean, I can speak locally and provincially a little bit, that people are really more conscious now buying locally. I mean, at one time you used to go to the store, the cheapest thing, and if it was flashy and bright, you bought it. I tell you, and I think we talked about this a number of times, it comes natural in our household now. When even go to a grocery store, you look for Northumberland, you look for Ontario, you look for Canada, and I mean, you got to really want something to go outside of Canada. I mean, you know, if it's a novelty or whatever it is. So, and we do that now out of, it just happens. It's not a fluke anymore. So we come a long way, but and so it's and it's something that I've said in the past, and I'll say it again, is we're not done. There's still a lot to do, and I mean, locally here in Northumberland, you know, as you know, David, the county has got involved in the buy local branding and proudly Northumberland, and I mean, that's ideas that we talked around my office table with a bunch of local farmers. You know, let's not talk about the price of corn because it was lousy at that day, but how can we come out of this in a better way? So we're making some headway for sure.
Well, I guess the catchphrase that always pops into my mind is the high cost of low prices. I mean, what is the ultimate cost? We've seen manufacturing on the wane here in Ontario. A lot of that has to do with people wanting cheaper product. So they're sending it offshore to have it made cheaper, not unlike the Canadian flag instance. I mean, people wanted a cheaper product.
Exactly.
You know, so they never, it's not really so much of thinking about the end result as it is about thinking about the bottom line. And sometimes the end result and the bottom line don't actually mesh. You know, I know we're finding a hard time in Ontario with trying to come to terms with personal debt as well as commercial debt as well as government debt. What kind of questions were you getting from the kids today as Speaker of the House?
Oh, questions about, you know, the clothes that I wear day in and day out. More specifics about some of the things that I do within the chamber. Question about is it lonely? Because I live in Queen's Park. I'm the sole resident of the building.
You actually live in
I live right in the building.
Oh,
I have
that's
an
hilarious.
apartment on the third floor. It's a gorgeous apartment, and the Speaker has lived there since the building opened in 1893. So, you know, it's a question, you know, does it get lonely at Queen's Park? So I find the children are very inquisitive, and to me, it's important to go in and talk to the students because, as I said to them, you know, decisions that governments make today are going to impact in their future. But I think as well to instill in them the importance of getting involved in our parliamentary system, our democracy. And you know, I've been a politician now for 21 years, and have always made a point to go into schools. And it's interesting now where I will talk to children that I spoke to 15, 20 years ago, who are now adults and voting, and say, you know what, Mr. Peters, I'm voting today because I remember what you said when you came into my classroom. So it's really important. And I think to understand, I think it's good for them to know as well that as politicians, and it doesn't matter what political stripe you come from, that we're people. And but we're also interested in the riding that we represent, and making sure that they know that they can use us as a conduit to, you know, bring their issues forward.
Yeah, one of the things that, you know, as we visit school, and I think it happened today, it happens every time I visit a school, one of the things that I always say, although we didn't say it today, but is that, you know, we're there to deliver a message, what government's all about, but it's also very, very important to hear back from them, although they're the youth, but, you know, they're going to look after us as we get older, so it's really, really important that we hear from them today what their needs are. So it's really a two-way street when we visit schools.
Is. Well, you know that, gentlemen, on that, we're going to make this a wrap. I want to thank the Honourable Steve Peters for coming. I want to thank the Mayor of Queen's Park. I'm going to think of that the next time I'm watching it. The Mayor, sole residents of Queen Park, and Lou Rinaldi, of course, our local member of provincial parliament. I want to thank you, gentlemen. We've been watching Municipal Matters here on TV Cogeco. I'm Dave Glover.